back, it was such a horrible thing. And nobody helped me. So, okay, I had to do it, and I did it. After 2 days, I came back, and Tommy started to cry. He had temperature. I didn't know what to do. And I said to the clerk, you have to help me. I don't know how to make the next day. So he went in, and after an hour he came out, and there were maybe 50 people with the same task. They wanted a visa. All these people wanted a visa. So Tommy cried and cried, and I didn't know how to calm him down. And after an hour he came out and he said, Mrs. Ross, here is your visa. And I broke down. And all these people we knew already because we always met them, they cried with me. It was just like a funeral. It was horrible. But I had the visa and I was overwhelmed. And then I had to wait until I get it approved, which took another week.
Now, didn't this the man who owned the hotel, the manager, didn't he deliver some food to you finally late at night?
I had to beg him every day to feed us, to give us something to eat.
Didn't somebody deliver food to you at night?
No.
Knock on your door?
No. And then I went for milk out to a creamery for milk. And when I asked for milk, the salesperson behind the counter made with his head a motion like no. And I thought he was a German guy, because I got so scared of him, and I ran out without the milk. And when I came back to the hotel, I remembered I had somewhere an address of a family in Sofia. And I said to the manager, would you please call this person? And he called, and they picked me up, and I had dinner with them. And I was so happy. I thought, now I have a friend. And they were lovely to me. They invited me for dinner, and they gave me for the child napkins, and I was just overwhelmed. And I came back again to the hotel, and I had a note from Milan, and he said in a telegram, I can't believe you are outside, out of Czechoslovakia. Give me another sign, send me another telegram that it's true. So now, no money. So how shall I tell? So I called this family and I said, could you please lend me some money? You will get it back. So I sent him another telegram saying, I need the fare to come to England. Send me money. So I got another telegram, and he said, it's so difficult to get the money to you. It will take too long. So go to this and this bank and tell them to lend us money. So when I came to the hotel, and when I came to the bank, and I asked for this man, and when he looked at me, he said, what do you want? And I said, just lend me some money. You will get it back. I promise you, we have money in England. And he said, you know, everybody comes and want money. Everybody. We have so many refugees here. I can't do it. And I got so upset. I said to the man, if you don't give me the money, I have to make a terrible noise and bother you here in front of everybody. I will embarrass you to death. And he got so scared, and he gave me the money. And I kissed his hand, and I said, thank you, you will get the money back. So I came again back to the hotel, and now I could pay for my travel expenses, for the ticket.
On the train?
For the train to go on the Orient Express to go to Paris. That was the only way to do it, to go to Paris and from Paris to London. And when I went, in the meantime Tommy got chickenpox. He was filled all over with a rash, in a red rash. So I went again to that manager in the hotel. I said, I need a doctor. And he called this doctor, and he came, and the doctor said, Mrs. Ross, I give you a good idea. You take your child, take the train and leave. That's the best I can tell you. He will be all right. It is maybe contagious, but don't tell anybody, just leave. I only want you to know what comes here will be not nice for you. Just leave the country. So I took the ticket. I got the ticket to go to Paris. But before, I had to have the visa to go to Paris. I had to have another visa, exit visa, to leave the country. It was a terrible, terrible way to get all these documents. It was just terrible. So I went to, in the end, I got everything done, and I left for the train to go to Paris. And when I came to the station, there were all 50 people which I always met at the consulate. And they all said goodbye to me, and we all cried again. So that was a goodbye. So now I was sitting in the train. And now we left Sofia, and we had to go to Le Havre. But we had to eat. We had nothing to eat. So there were 2 Englishmen on the train. And these 2 Englishmen said, you have to go and eat. I can tell you are hungry. And I couldn't understand them in English. So they said, go to the dining car. So we went to the dining car, and we were eating, and then we came back, and I thanked them. And then came dinner, the same thing. So for 2 days, these 2 men kept me going, and I was so, so grateful. And then we came to Le Havre. In Le Havre, we had to stay overnight and wait until the ship leaves to London. So this gentleman took a room for me. But now I was so afraid. When I stayed overnight, they might come and visit me during the night. So I locked the room, and suddenly somebody knocks at the door, and they said, dinner. Let me in, you have dinner. And I said, leave it outside, and I didn't eat. We didn't eat because I was afraid somebody will come in. So then
you thought you might want a little...
Yeah. And then in the morning, we had to go to the boat for London. And on the boat, we had to have, everybody had to have because of mines in the water. We had to be protected with the ring, wie heißt das? Safety rings. And there were constantly the bells ringing. That means the mines are in the water. So suddenly the boat was rocking very heavily, and I took Tommy and I kept him so tight on me so nothing happens to me. And when we came to England, thank God nothing happened. So we left the boat, and now was the trouble how to go to the train to go to England. And the man told me to be with my ticket. He said, there is something wrong with my ticket. And I said, what is wrong? I got the ticket in Sofia. And he said, no, you are a spy. We can't trust you to get into England. You have to how can I say that now? Prove that you are not a spy. So I showed him every paper I had, and I said, do you really believe I have a little child, that I'm a spy? And I talked myself out of it as much as I can. And I said, you know, I'm so afraid the train will not wait for me if you keep me here. And he said, that is our duty, we have to control that. So then, after maybe 2 hours, I was released and I could go to the train, and the train was waiting for me, and I could go to London. And now it took quite a while before we got to London, and in London I hoped Milan will be waiting for me. But we were late, one day we were late, and I wasn't sure whether Milan will be at the train. But sure enough, he was there, and when he came in the coupe, he didn't recognize us, and he went away. And I screamed after him. I said, where are you going? In German, of course. And he came back and he said, my God, that's you. He didn't recognize me.
Your hair?
I had tinted hair that became green. The color, my aunt in Prague said, how can you go to see your husband in white hair? You have to tint your hair. And the hair was tinted in henna, in red, and it turned to green. So he didn't recognize me. And when he saw Tom started to cry, and he said, man, no, man. He didn't want to go to him. And I said, Milan, nimm das Kind, and I have enough. I can't go on anymore. And so we got to a hotel. He was making reservation in the hotel. He said, all the money I have, I took this hotel because the place is so bad where we live. I wanted you to have a good night's rest. So when we got to the hotel, there were many people inquiring how I could come here, how my present was possible to go to England, and all the people said, and all my relatives, and nobody came, just you and the child. So I was telling them, with my guts and my perseverance, I could make it. And now leave me alone, I need my peace. So we went to this hotel room and we stayed one night in the hotel, and I had all these diapers. They had to be dried and they had to be cleaned and they had to, and I just gave up. I just couldn't go on anymore. So that was one night, and the next day we went to the hostel where all the refugees were staying. And when I came there, the lady of the house said to my husband, "You couldn't get a prettier woman? Is this all you could get?" It was so embarrassing. I looked so horrible. So then we went to our room, and it was raining, and there was a hole in the roof, and I got wet. And not only wet, I got a cold, and Tom got a cold, and we were in a horrible situation. So then came Milan's cousin, was a lady doctor, and she came and saw us, and she said, Gottes Willen, how can you live like that? Tom had a tonsillitis, he was all red in his throat, and she brought all kinds of medicine, and we were treated by her, and that was my story, how I got out of Czechoslovakia.
And so you had to stay in this camp for a while, though, yes? I mean, Mommy was...
Milan had no job. We were not allowed to work because the Czechoslovakian consulate was giving us some money every month with the stipulation that we are not allowed to take any job. So we don't take any jobs of the English folks.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to live on this little money, but it was enough, and the hostel where we stayed was paid, and we got fed, and
Mm-hmm.
that was all what was necessary.
And I guess soon after you got to England, I guess Bulgaria must have been invaded,
And then
France was invaded.
Yes, the whole peninsula, Bulgaria was occupied. Everything was, Hitler would take.
Poland was
everything.
taken.
Yeah.
And then soon, I guess, so then a while, then you got pregnant with Mom.
Yeah.
But then they started bombing England, right?
Yeah. And I gave birth in a very little place. The name was Kendal in England. And during the night, there was a bomb fell on Kendal. And that was only one time when I gave birth to Mom, to your mom.
Now you had, Mom said that you had at one point decided, you changed your mind, you said, I can't have a child.
Yeah. When I got pregnant in Abergavenny, I had a job as a housewife for a farmer. And Milan was a gardener in a castle. And I had to cook on an open fire, and one open fire, and I had to cook, and I never knew how to cook. So that farmer, I don't know, he wasn't very happy with me. And the meals were very, very bad. And after a while, my sister Emmy, your mom, came to visit, and she said, you can't stay here. In what kind of a condition are you with the family? No, that doesn't work. So she said, you have to find out whether the Czech consulate could not do something for you. So we got, after a few weeks, we got a permission to go to Patterdale. There was a Czech hostel, and in this hostel we were permitted to stay. and it was a beautiful castle, and the people were so very nice, and we were taken care of, and that was a blessing, because after all we went through, it was a wonderful thing, even though it was a hostel and not much to look forward to. But it was a living, and we got the best out of it, what we could. And when I gave birth to Margaret, that was a horrible incident. The room where we were staying, we had one room. Tom was in a crib, and I said to my friends in that hostel, could you take care, could you go in and look out for Tom, because we go to a movie. And when we came back from the movie, the whole room was burnt out. I could tell when we came up the stairs, it was smelling of fire, and I rushed up and looked to the door, to our door, and it was burnt out. And I was so shocked, I couldn't talk. And the woman who took care of Tom came running, and she said, nothing happened, Tom is all right, he's in our room, in our apartment, in our room. So thank God for that this worked out. But my papers, which were so important, were in a cupboard, and the cupboard had on the floor, on the bottom, had a little compartment, and that compartment had a metal cover, and the papers were saved.
Mm.
Everything was burnt out.
Mm.
My fur coat, I had a fur coat, was like a rat. It shrunk into such a little thing. So that was, but Tom was alive, and that was the main thing.
But Mom said that you had changed your mind at one point and wanted to have an abortion when you were pregnant with her.
When she was on the way, we had nothing. We were so poor, and I was pregnant. And I did everything I could. I took quinine, and I had a bath so hot that I was red like a lobster, just to lose the embryo. And nothing happened. And she stuck, and I'm so grateful she's here. She's all I have now.
Now, weren't you going to go see a doctor? And
Yeah.
She says, and then the siren went off.
No. I forgot already. It's so long ago. No, we had curfew.
Yeah.
The refugees, we were all refugees in England. We were all just taken in, thank God. They were so kind to us, the English people. And when I made an appointment, a friend in London, we were living in Patterdale, a friend in London said, I make an appointment for you to have an abortion. And I was very happy to be able to get rid of the embryo. And in the meantime, we had a curfew. We were not allowed to leave after 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
We had to be at home at 8 o'clock. And that made me unable to go to England. I couldn't leave. So I had to give birth to Margaret. And Margaret was my angel now and is forever. But when Margaret was born, there came a commissar from the English office for giving Margaret her name. What is it called, David?
Rose?
No, the commissar.
Birth certificate?
To get a birth certificate.
Yes.
Ich bin so aufgeregt, I can't talk. So that man came and he asked me what do you want to call your baby? And I said, Margaret Rose. And he said, oh, like the princess, Margaret Rose. And I said, the princess? And she said, yes, it's the princess name, Margaret Rose. So I said, my last name is Rose. So he said, oh, Roth. So that was Roth. So now Margaret Rose had a name, Margaret Rose Roth. That is the name of Margaret Rose Roth.
Now, were you ever able to contact some of those people who helped you along the way and send them the money that you had?
And Milan sent the money to Sofia.
Yeah.
And I had a pair of boots my aunt gave me in Hunya. It's a material like the people on the country have these very heavy coats, and a boot that was a lovely pair of boots, and I left this pair of boots to the daughter, and she was ever so grateful, because these winters in Bulgaria, Troches, very, very hard. So she was happy. But we sent the money to the people in the bank in Sofia and to the hotel. So I hope they got it, because we didn't.
You never heard.
No.
And then what happened to your parents and to your sister?
Well, my sister was already in England. She lived in Cardiff, in Wales. And I contacted her right away. And she said, why don't you come to live with us in Cardiff? We have a house, and you can stay with us. After the hostel, we went to live with her. But it didn't work out too well, because Yomi and Tom were fighting all the time. And Heini Beck, Emmy's husband, had to study for his doctorate, and he needed his peace. So that's why we went to Abergavenny, where we took that position as a cleaning woman, and my husband was a gardener. And we lived there until they came from from the hostel in Patterdale Hall. And there we had a fairly good life. And Margaret was born, and I had borrowed a children carriage, and I put Margaret in that carriage and brought her on the balcony where the men had their quarters, and they came and said, Mrs. Ross, you can't leave the child all alone on that porch. We want our peace. She's crying too much. So I had to take her and walk with her in the carriage so that she has fresh air. But I had to have, my job was with Tommy too, and with getting the food on the table and have the place clean. So it was a task. We had to make the best. And Milan was working in the woods. And when we left England, I get some money from England now. This is his social security, because when he worked as a war worker, so he was insured, and this money comes now as a social security.